how the concept of contracts work, the concept of component works, and the concept of templates. These three are important. Contracts means interface. Component is a class. And template is a abstract. The abstract classes that we use. So where we use the templates, we discussed the point about the templates are used in the concepts like rollouts and all. What is abstraction? The process of hiding the structure and providing the functionality. That is abstraction actually. Now, after understanding this, you need to know about generics. Generics. So, what is the concept of generic and how generic works? Actually, to understand generic, we will see one situation. That means how the concept works. To understand generic, how it is going to work. For example, suppose we have to create a function. This function is some get data function. We are using this function to access the data. So here we are accessing and we are expecting some data. And what this function have to do is it should present the data. So I want to use this function universally for any kind of data. I need to use that for any type of data. Some employees data, students data, products data, some weather data, whatever data comes, I need to access and use it. Then what should be the type of data? What should be its data type? I must able to handle any kind of data. Then what should be the data type? Data type, you make it as what? Data as any type. If you make the data as any type, then what is problem is, if you make any type, you will take one type of data and later you pass another type of data. It will work. Initially, what data you take and later what data you use, if it is not matching, then still it works. Because any allows you to assign any another type of value. Even you initialize, you assign some value. You assign some data at the time of starting. Later, if you pass any another data, then it will allow. So, any is not a solution. Then how we can design any reference in such a way that it is ready to take any type of data. That means it can take any type of data, but it should be strongly typed. It should take any type of data and it should be strongly typed. How this is possible? If any type, it is not strongly typed. But we need to able to design in such a way that it is ready to take any type of data. But once it takes the data, then it should not allow any another type of data. This mechanism is called type safe. We call this mechanism as type safe. Type safe means it is ready to handle any kind of data. But once the data type is known, it will not allow any another type of data. That means initially it is type safe and later it becomes strongly typed. So it can work for any type of data and it can restrict specific type also. That is the nature of generics. That means how you can solve this problem. You can solve the problem by using the concept of generic. Generic, we can handle that by using generics. So, what is the concept of generic actually is? Generic refers to type safe. Generic refers to type safe. It refers to type safe. Type safe, type safe is initially ready to accept any type, initially ready to accept any type, and can make it as strongly typed, and make it as strongly typed for the type defined into reference, and can make it as strongly typed for the type defined into reference. That is actually generics. So generic refers to type safe. It is ready to accept any type and can make it strongly typed for the type defined into reference. Right. So what can be generic in TypeScript actually? So TypeScript, TypeScript, TypeScript generic types can be defined for uh, variables, can be defined for functions, can be defined for methods, can be defined for parameters, and can be defined even for class. TypeScript generic types can be defined for variable. A variable can be generic. A function can be generic. A method can be generic. Parameters can be generic. Class also can be generic. Actually, constructor also can be generic. But here in web-based technologies, it is not supported. TypeScript, when it is used for web-based, generic is not supported for constructor. But actually Microsoft language supports generic for constructor also, but not in TypeScript. Generic constructors are not allowed, but people who know about generics, they know that there is generic constructor. But in TypeScript, it is not allowed. Why? Because uh, it is a concept of Microsoft added for their languages. Majority Microsoft languages have a generic concept. TypeScript is also having, but limited. It is not having generic for constructor. You can have variable generic, function generic, method generic, parameter generic, and a class generic. How you define generics means how you configure the generics. Let's see one example here. That means how to solve the problem. How we can solve the problem. The problem I explained. What is our requirement? We want one method in such a way that it should able to accept any kind of data. Once it takes the data, it should not allow any another type of data. Right? For example, I will show you the concept here. Suppose we are having a function. So we are having a function and the function name, we are defining the function as some print. This print function able to take some data. That means just first one basic point I am explaining. So we will design a print function and it have two parameters, A any type and B also any type. Now the final return type of this will be, suppose it is a void type. I'm just giving the void type. Just I'm explaining the basic syntax. Now what is problem in this is A can be any type, B can be any type. But what we want is if A is number, B also should be number. If A is string, B also should be string. But if I designed as any, then A can be number, B can be string. So if you have observed, we learnt about array constructor. In array constructor, when you initialize value, according to first value, other values are fixed. Right? How that is possible? According to first value, how other values are determined? That means if first value is string, all others are string. First is number, all others are numbers. So we make this print as a generic type. Generic types are defined in an angle bracket with a reference of type. That means in the angle bracket, we need a type marking. And type marking can be done anyway. People write T. You can write XYZ anything, doesn't matter. But it refers to data type. That is the reason people have an habit of T or people have an habit of type. You can do anything. Suppose I am giving type. Now what should happen is this A is that type and B also the type. So what is the specialty now? Whenever you access print, into the print, you pass the type as number. When you pass the type as number, A and B becomes number. That means they are ready to accept any type. And once they know the type, they will not allow any another type. That means now A must be number, B also should be number. Now I am accessing print and I passed into this a string. Then A and B must be string only. So that means we have to define. So this A and B as string. That means A, B as string type only. If I use any as type, what is the problem? One can be number, another can be string. So that means once I determine the type, I don't want to handle any another type. That means I will pass some type. It will work only for the type. Before that, it is ready to accept any type. Once you mention the type, it will not allow any another type. This mechanism is called as what? Generics. And here function is generic and the parameters are generic. We have function generic and the parameters are generic. This is not example, just syntax I am showing here. So generic type requires marking with the angle brackets, marking with type. Generic type requires marking with type. It requires marking with type. So syntactically, so we have a function and name and t type and parameter of that particular type. And even the return also can be that type. Even you can make the return also that particular type. So return also that particular type. So function type, parameter type, and the return type. Now here, let's see. Here you can see the return type also can be defined with the type. That means now what it has to do, it should return. And it should return some A and B. That means it should return some A, so and B. Suppose temporarily I am giving here, so the value of A and the value of B, value of B. Here another problem is that, means when you define the return type, another problem is there. What is the problem is, generally when you are using generics, you cannot have any operator on generic. You cannot have any operators on generics. On generic types, you cannot have a operator. Operator is not allowed on generic. Why? Because if data type is not known, which operator you will implement on it? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, greater than, less than. That means if you don't know the type, then what is the operator you will implement on it? That is the reason here we need to know another point. So generic types will not allow any operator will not allow any operator to handle operands. So you have to handle interactions. You can say handle operations using, you have to handle operations using methods and functions. Using methods and functions only you have to handle the operation. So using methods and functions, you have to handle the operation. You cannot use operators on them. For example, I am trying to use here, I am trying to use A plus B, written A plus B. It's not allowed. It is not allowed to perform A plus B. Why it is not allowed to perform? Because generic will not allow operators on that. Then how to perform addition? If string type, it should concatenate. If number type, it should do addition. Then how do you handle addition without operator? Without operator, how you will do addition? What is thinking in this? Just you write a function and this function is sum. It will take A and A is what type? Any. B is what type? Any. And what this function sum have to do? It should return A plus B. It can do because it is not a generic. Now what we can do? We can access that function sum here. Into that we can pass A and B. This is okay. That is okay. That means you cannot use directly any operator. you learned math functions, you learned string functions. You can create your own functions to handle the operation and you can perform that particular functionality. That means you cannot directly use operators in a generic function. So what you do, you use your predefined functions, math functions, string functions that you have learned. Through that, you can handle the manipulation, or you create your own function and access and use that function. Into that, you can pass these parameters. Now you know that the result of this must be printed console.log. Print that number. Here also console.log. So one is doing addition, another one is doing concatenation. That means now when I run this here, so we are running this like tsc index.ts and node index.js, it is showing the result. That means it is performing the operation. This is addition, this is concat. That means you cannot use operators. You cannot use operators. You have to manage by using functions. Using functions. So on generic, if you want to handle any operation, then usually you have to handle like this. So we have a function and function name. It's a generic, the parameter type and the return type. And here, so it should return a function. This function able to perform any functionality. That function should able to perform any functionality. So you cannot use any operators. So you cannot handle any operations directly. Through a function, we should able to handle the functionality. So generic types, when you are using, you have to avoid using these operators. That is the point. Now let's see here the real implementation here. That means what is the real implementation? How do we handle the real implementation? For example, what we want to do is we want to create a function. This is fetch data. That is the function. It is expecting a response. This response is any type. Then it is not good because if it is any type, later I can store any another type. So I will make it as generic type and the fetch data is generic type. Now what it should do is it should return the response. Whatever response comes, it should return the response. Now how do you can do lot of other operations on it, right? And you can return that response. Or you can also perform any functionality like reading every key and value. How you can do? So for where property on in what is it response. So what we are doing, we are using console.log. What is it? The property. Property will return the key name and we have to put the value. Here I will put an expression, the property and the value. How do we put the value is the response of property. We will pass the value like this. This is reading keys and values actually. Now, what is the fetch? So it is a void type. So it is performing this particular functionality. So I want this fetch data to work for any kind of data. And already we designed like that. Then see what will happen now. I'm using an interface. This is iProduct is an interface. This is having product name and it is having product price. This is a number type. We are having another interface. This is, for example, like I employee, employee. And here we have first name, it is a string type, last name, that is also string type, and salary, that is number type. Something like this we are having. Now observe the fetch data. I want this data. So we are using fetch data method. Fetch data is a function. Now I want this data, fetch data to work for employee. Then into the generic type, we pass I employee. Then automatically the fetch data function will work only for employee. You can see response is only employee type. That is how actually the fetch is working internally. If you have observed Axios, even Axios is designed in TypeScript. When you observe Axios, Axios is having response.data. And what that response.data, that will change itself according to what data is coming. You will pass one URL. In that URL, what type of data is fetched? It will work only for that type of data. If you try to use any another key, it will say there is no key by this name in the data. That means only one Axios, how it is working for any kind of data. That means how Axios method is designed so that it is working for any data, any API data, how it is accessed. That means usually what we should have one API method for products, another API method for employee. For every kind of data, we need separate methods. That's not possible. One method should able to work for all. And how that is possible? That is because of generic. The Axios that you are using is also from generic. It is designed using TypeScript only. And you see now it is employee data means That means what should be the data to be passed into this response? Response is an object, and this object must have only employee data. That means first name, and you need to define the first name. And it should have last name, and the last have salary. Now everything is fine. If you miss anything, if you miss anything, that means salary is not defined, then it shows error. Why? Because you mentioned the type as employee, and according to employee type, all employee details are required. That means salary is there. Now it is fine. It is fine. Now, another important point is now I am using fetch data. Into that, I will pass as I product. Then automatically this function works for product type data. It works for product type data. That means what type of data you are passing, then automatically it becomes that type of data. This is very important in our React because in React TypeScript, where we store the data actually in a component, to store the data, we declare a state. In the state, we store the data. Now, state is generic type in React. The state is generic type. That means at the time of initializing the state, you tell what type of data it should manage. It will manage that type of data. Earlier, what we were doing in JavaScript, the type we are mentioning as an object. That means it should have ID, it should have name. But now we will use it as a generic. Just while initializing the state, we will define the type. That later you will see that. That means now in future what happens? Your use state is a generic type. You mention it as I product, then automatically what kind of data it can handle? Product type of data. It will handle the product type of data. That means it will not allow any another type of data. Now all your use state is a generic type. Generic type. So the generic types, now it should accept only product type data. product type data. So that means what is the product type data requires? It requires a name, and it requires some value. It requires price, and it needs some price. You can define like this. And important here, another concept is, remember, you are defining only an interface. That means it is allowing this type of data. And see the interesting part here. Fetch data. This time I am defining product, product, an array type. Product as an array type. That means now the response data is not one object, it is an array of objects. It is an array of objects. That is how actually response was working. That means you pass one product, only one product data it will come. You pass an array will come. How it is changing itself? That means it is working for array and it is working for object. It is working for array and object. That means now this is an array of object, and every object must have a name. So it have mobile, so it have price, so it should have details. That means another object. Then in that case, what you have to do is you have to write the logic according to the data you are having. That means what we have to do, we need to write the logic according to data. So this will not suitable now. Why? Because I written the logic here for which purpose? Only to handle one object. But if it is array, you can use for that particular array. That means what we need to do here, we need to write the logic for dealing with array as well as object. We can handle that. So you can pass this also. But observe now, initially we will create that later and I will run this here. TSC index.ts and node index.js. And you can see it is going to display both. This is the employee data and this is the product data. That means the function is designed in such a way that it can handle any kind of data, any kind of data. This is actually the nature of generic. Generic allows you to configure type safe. This is one example I will give here. This is an example. Generic functions. So that means a function can be generic, a parameter can be generic. Parameter can be generic. And its return type also can be generic. Now, many times what we do is we can design a class as generic. If a function is generic, its parameters can be generic, its values can be generic. But if a class is generic, all the methods can be generic, all the properties can be generic. That means entire memory can be generic type. So a class can be generic. For example, suppose I will tell you one example for your real world general purpose. Suppose you are learning Java or .NET or PHP or Python, like this technologies. Now you are developing a project, you are designing a project on these technologies, Java, .NET, PHP and all. That means you are building one app. You are building an app. Now tell me which database your project may use. Which database a project can use? What is the database used by the projects? We are not sure. Some projects may use Oracle. Some projects may use MySQL. Some projects may use MongoDB. Some projects may use SQL Server. Am I right? That means we are not sure. Now the question here is, now these technologies must have a library. which can connect with any kind of data. That means now will they have one class for Oracle, another class for MySQL, another class for MongoDB, another class for SQL Server? You know, hundreds of databases are there. Hundreds of databases are there. Different types of databases are there. Hundreds of databases are there. Which database a company uses for their application, we are not sure. Then how many classes these technologies need to keep ready so that you can communicate with those databases? When you learn these technologies, you will learn a concept called data adapters, database drivers. You will learn about a concept called drivers. What are drivers? Some drivers are required for communicating with Oracle. Some drivers are required to communicate with MySQL. That means actually even today, we are in the generation of artificial intelligence, but Java, .NET, these technologies are not capable of creating one driver for all database. Still, they are not having it. We are in artificial intelligence technology, but these technologies still they are not capable of designing one driver which can connect with all databases. They don't have. Even Java, .NET, PHP, Python, they use different. That means even those technologies which have high resources of developers and all, they are not able to create one driver which can communicate with all database. So now the point is, but at least what they have done is they have reduced the number of drivers. That means they designed some drivers in such a way that one driver can communicate with Oracle and MySQL. Another driver can communicate with some 2, 3 databases, but there is no single driver in the world which can communicate with any database in the world. It's not possible. These technologies have to depend on different database drivers. That means now the question is, how do I create one class in such a way that it can work for any database? That means it should work for Oracle, it should work for MySQL, it should work for MongoDB. Any kind of database it should be able to handle. We need to design a class and an object for that class in such a way which can work for any kind of database. Just general requirement, that is. Then how it is possible? How it is possible? So we are creating so interface. One is Oracle. Oracle is the interface. Generally, to connect with Oracle, actually, hundreds of databases will be there. I hope you people know a website called connectionstrings.com. This is a very popular website. Software engineers usually know this website because this website is one place from where you will get information about every database in the world. Every database in the world. And you see, these are all different databases. This is the list of all databases, and you don't even know the names of them. Right? So many databases are there. This website is very popular among developers because this website provides all the solutions for developers to communicate with different databases in the world. That means suppose some rare type of database your company is using, its help is provided here. Its help is provided here. That means, do you know, when you go to some interviews at experience level, they will say that, okay, I know you learned Oracle, I know you learned MongoDB, you know how to get the data from there and display. You are a Java developer. So you already learned how to communicate with Oracle. But in interviews, what they ask is, I have some data in an Excel file, you have to read it and present it. Because Excel is also used as a database in various business. Do you know Excel is very popularly used for mobile services? Mobile service providers like Airtel, Idea, all these people use data in Excel only. They use CSV format, which is an Excel format where mobile numbers, contacts, everything are defined. Now, when you go to interviews, they ask that already every Java developer knows how to communicate with Oracle. I don't want that. So I want you to write me the logic and show how to communicate with an Excel database. And sometimes even they ask like, I have data in a HTML table, how to read it from Java. In a HTML table, some data is present. How do I read it? I want my Java to use that table as its data source. Is it possible to use HTML table as data source? Yes, it is possible. You see here, there is an HTML table data also. HTML table data also. That means you select this, it will show you how to communicate with HTML table. How to communicate with HTML table, how do you connect it, and what is the provider required for this. OLEDB, ODBC, database drivers, so many will be there. Different help will be provided to you. That means different data providers, how to communicate by using it. Usually these kind of questions are asked regularly in interviews because majority in interviews they will not ask what you learned, right? So in a practical test for experienced people also they give these kind of tasks because they never worked with such data, and that is what they will ask. Because asking you what you worked on, what is use of that? That doesn't show up your skills, right? That means asking you something what you haven't learned. So that is what interview is about. Interview is not testing what you learned. Interview is about testing what you can explore. Developer's main capability is exploring and handling the issue. That means he is unable to handle one concept because he don't know, he haven't worked with it. But still he should able to resolve it. He never worked on it. He don't know about it. But that is the task given to him. So he need to now explore by himself and do it. That's the reason in interviews these days what they do. They say that go home. I will give you 2 days of time. In 2 days you submit this. That means now imagine how much confidence they are. That you go home, you try and you send us. That means they know that you will take help from several people. You will Google it, you will do it. Still, they know that you you are doing that. That means you are capable as a developer. That means you are researching, you are learning about it, knowing about it, and you are implementing it. Means that means you are correctly, perfectly developer. That's the reason they give such tasks. That means these days for fresher experienced people also, they are not saying that sit here and do this task. That is only in rare occasions. Many occasions they say that through email we will send you some tasks. Those you do it and send us. You can do it home, right? But it requires a lot of research on that because they give you so many complicated concepts. So, for example, you know how Oracle connects? How Oracle connects? Usually, Oracle connects by using, suppose I said user ID. User ID is a string, and we have a password. Password is also string, and we have a database. Database is also string. And suppose interface, we have MongoDB. MongoDB connects by using a URL. MongoDB requires only URL. That means different databases have different connections. I think you know different connection strings will be there. Oracle connects by using one connection string. MySQL connects by using another connection string. Every database have a different connection string. So now we have to create a class in such a way I want a class by name database. This base database class should work for any database. It should work for any database. Then this entire class, this entire class memory, I make it as generic. That means a function can be generic, a method can be generic, a property can be generic, parameter can be generic, class can be generic. Class is generic means all its members can be generic. That means now in this, we are defining a constructor. In the constructor, at the time of creating, we will pass the connection string. We are passing the connection string. This connection string is a generic type. And remember, constructor is not generic. It is not possible here, but constructor parameter is generic. Constructor parameter is generic. Now what we have to do for var property in connection string? We need to read every property from the connection string console.log. We need to print the property and we need to print the connection string. Connection string, in the connection string, we need to define the property. We need to configure in this way. Now that means now here the class is generic. Constructor is generic. Now what we need to do, we are printing the details. You can do another way also. I will show you another way later. Initially, now how do we create an object? LET, Oracle. So I want this class to communicate with Oracle. So new database, and at the time of allocating memory, you pass I Oracle into this. Now this class becomes Oracle compliant. That means now this becomes Oracle class. That means class is open to any type, but now it is fixed. It will not work for any another database. It will work only for Oracle. Only for Oracle. And you see the connection string. It is asking Oracle connection string. And Oracle connection string we are passing here. What is it? User ID. User ID is some Scott. Then password. Password is some tiger. And some database. Database is EMPDB, something like this. This is how we are defining. I created another object, Mongo, and is equal to new database. Into that I am passing I MongoDB. Then it becomes MongoDB class. That means one class which can work for any database. Any database. That means now it is using MongoDB connection string, which requires URL. URL some MongoDB :/1270001 27017. That is actually MongoDB connection string. Right now you can see that that is what we have defined Oracle. Right now I am accessing this and we will run this tsc index.ts and we have a node index.js. That means it is working for both Oracle and it is working for MongoDB. It is working for MongoDB. That means entire class is generic. The class is generic. There is another technique. Another technique. In the class currently what we have done generic class. In the class what we have done is in the class we defined constructor as generic. Constructor as generic. That means constructor parameter as generic. There can be another situation. What is that situation is, we will not use a constructor. We define a property. The property is public connection string. Connection string is a property. This is generic type. Now, if it is generic type, what you will initialize? Before it is generic, what it is? Before it is generic, it is null. That means you have to use a union of type. What is it? Null. If it is null, what is the default? Default is what? Null. When you define generic variables or generic properties, you cannot simply put generic. You cannot simply put generic, because if you put generic, it will ask what is the value to be assigned or what is the value to be initialized. That means why we say null, because the value to be initialized or value to be assigned will be determined dynamically. If value need to be determined dynamically, then its type should be what? Null. We have two types, null or undefined. Will you use undefined or null? We will not use undefined. Why? Because the value is expected dynamically. Then we define it as what type? Null type. So this is important. And after that, we have a method. That means we have a public print method. And what this print method have to do? This print method have to print the details. It is an void. It should print the details. Print the details of whom? This connection string. That means how to access the connection string for where property in this dot what? Connection string. We have to access the connection string. And console.log. Console.log, and we have property. We will use the property and we will use this dot connection string of property. We will use this. This is another technique. What is difference between previous and now? The previous technique is constructor have a generic parameter, but now the property is generic. The property is generic. That means now what we do, we create an oracle as new database. Then into the database, we need to pass the type. What is the type? Oracle type. Then automatically now the oracle object connection string becomes, observe, the connection string becomes an oracle type connection string. That means now the property is type safe, and now it becomes an oracle connection string, and you know how to define. Oracle connection string requires user ID. So Scott, and it requires password, that is tiger, something like this. And it requires some database is empdb, like this we define. Now we are creating another one. So that is Mongo is equal to new database. It should work for MongoDB. It should work for MongoDB. Then what we have to define? Mongo dot what? Connection string, and we need to pass the URL. So MongoDB :/127.00127.017. That is the Mongo connection string how to define. And after this, we need to print that. That means that Oracle have to print. And you see this print will print the details. Here also Mongo dot what? Print. It is going to print the detail. And observe carefully, this object is strongly typed for MongoDB only. And this object is strongly typed only for Oracle. That means a class object is open for any type. But once it knows the type, it will not allow any another type. That means now it is going to handle the same situation. Same concept, but this time we made the property and the class as generic types, right? This is one example for that. How do you deal with the generics? This is example for generic. This is generic class and property. You can have generic class and property. So that is the generic class and property related example. Right? So we can have generic members, generic variables, generic functions, generic parameters, generic classes, generic properties, even generic methods. Generic methods means what? A method can be generic. A method can be generic. That means what you can do, this method, you can make it as a generic type. If you make the method as generic type, the parameter also can be generic type. The parameter also can be generic type. That means suppose connection string, it is also generic type. Generic type. Actually, in this example, it is not suitable. We can define the generic. A method, just like a function, how you define the function, a method also can be generic. That means while calling the method, you pass some type and it will work only for that particular type. It will not work for others. Right? This is the nature of how we can use generics. Right? So this is the example of understanding the concept of generic. This is very important because later in your React, everything is generic. When you define a state, when you are trying to deal with some data, everything is generic. That means we make them type safe and later we will make them work for specific. We don't use any type much because when you use any type, it can handle other type of values later. We want type safe and we want to work for strongly typed. Then what is the nature? Generic. You can use generics. Next important, once you know the generic, we have another concept to understand is enum. Enum is enumeration. Enumeration. In TypeScript, you need to understand another enum, enumeration. Actually, enum is a collection of constants. Enum is a collection of constants. It is a collection of constant. And you know that what is meant by constants. Constants must be initialized with a value. So must be initialized with a value. And what is the point? Constants will not allow to change the value. Will not allow to change the value. They will not allow to change the value. So whenever you want to deal with a fixed set of constants, then you can use this enum. Here again, some misunderstandings are there because some websites tell that enum is a collection of related type of constants. That is wrong. It is not related type of constants. And sometimes people tell that enum is a collection of numeric constants. That is also wrong. Why? Because generally in TypeScript, the constants of enum can be, so enum in TypeScript, can handle number, so can handle string, and it can handle expression. It can handle number, string, and expression. Enum is not just only number, it can handle all three also. That means it is not same type of constants. But what is specialty about enum is, especially when you are dealing with number, numeric constants in enum have auto implementation. Numeric constants in enum have auto implementation. That is the specialty of enums. That means fixed set of values we use in the same way. We don't allow them to modify, customize, or do anything. For example, what is the real implementation. Real implementation is nothing but suppose you are working with web development. In web development, we have uh, request methods. What are the request methods we have? Get, post, put, patch, delete. These are request methods and they are fixed. They will not change. Get is always for fetching the data. Post is always for submitting. Their functionality will never change. They are initialized with a functionality. They will work only with that functionality. For example, we have HTTP status codes. Status codes 404. 404 is always not found anywhere in the world, any technology in the world, anytime. 404 is fixed. For which one? Not found. 200 is fixed for OK. There is no chance of changing. That means we need a fixed set of values. Error codes, server port numbers, and these all generally taken as enums. We take them as enums. That means collection of status codes. For example, just how we define that enum. We have to use an enum and enumeration name, enum name. And what is the enumeration name? Enumeration name status codes. So it is a collection of constants. And remember, it will have a key and value. Key and value. Suppose key is 200. A key is like string. Key is a string here. What is the string? Not found. Or say OK. OK. And its value is 200. Now we have another key. What is it? Not found. And its value is what? 404. 404. Suppose timeout. Timeout is the status code. And we are not giving a number. We are not initializing a value. Actually, every value in an enum must be initialized. That means every key must be initialized. But what is the specialty is, if you don't initialize any value, then automatically it will implement based on previous value. That means timeout is now 405. It will set the value as 405. That means auto implementation of values. That means you just initialize the first one. Automatically all other values will be incremented. It will be initialized. So what is the advantage of enum is, if any value is not initialized, it will automatically initialize the value based on the previous. But remember, this is only for numeric. Numeric. So for example, now how do we print that? Console.log. So status codes, that is the enum name, dot, and the status code. What is the status code? Suppose not found. It is just going to return the value. It is going to return the value. That means what is the value? It will return the value 404. Going to return the value 404. So, and here important is, currently we are having only numeric constants. Suppose we are having, so we are having like found, and it is not having a value. What is its value? If it is the first value, there is no previous value, then automatically it starts with 0. It starts with 0. That means the next value depends on the previous value. If there is no previous value, then the starting value will be 0. That means what is the value of found? Found will be 0. Will be 0. Automatically it will initialize. If you want, you can put some value. You can put some value. If you are not setting a value and it is the first one, then automatically it will start with 0. Suppose any another value. So any another value. Suppose we have method and we are not defining a value into this. Then what is the method? Method is 201. method is 201 because its previous value is 200 and the next value will be incremented by 1. That means it is going to have 201. 201. This is the basic nature. So we can have collection of constants. We can store some values into it. Remember, it is not just only number. A constant can have a string. A constant can have a number. A constant can have even an expression also. Expression. So here, but important is a constant cannot have boolean. That means so enum cannot have a boolean value or expression. Boolean value or boolean expression. It cannot have a boolean value and expression. It cannot have a boolean value or boolean expression. Boolean value or boolean expression. So here, why you cannot have a boolean value or boolean expression? Because booleans are not actually constants. Boolean have to change true or false. And boolean cannot be a constant at all. So that's the reason booleans are not allowed in enum. Boolean expression. Remember, it can have string also. I will copy this first. This is related to numbers. Huh? This is related to numbers. You can have a string also. For example, I given, so write not found is equal to page not found. That is a string. That is a string. Now, after that, we are giving as OK. OK, and I am not assigning value. Now it is error. Auto implementation of string cannot happen. Auto implementation of numbers can happen. String cannot happen. Every string must be initialized with a value. That means here we have to mention this too. It can have a combination of string and number. There is no problem. And suppose if I give an above as method, now what is the value of the method? Obviously it will be 0. That means it will be starting with 0. Default anything starting with 0. Only the string that you initialized will take a string. And if you are defining a number, it will take a number. If you are having a value not initialized and the previous is a number, it will be auto implemented. If previous is a string, then auto implementation will not work. It will work only for what? It will work only for numbers. And as I told you, it can have, you see, A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, C equal to A plus B. It can have expression also. It can have an expression also. That means I am defining here some addition. Addition is equal to here C. That is status codes dot C. The result will be displayed. That means an enum can have expression, a enum can have number, an enum can have string, right? And you can see that it is going to perform that and display. That means it is going to show that tsc index.ts and node index.js, it is going to show that. And another point is, as I told you, if it is A greater than B, it is not allowed. Why? Because it is a Boolean expression and enum cannot have Booleans. That is the reason some interviews will confuse you. In some interviews, they ask, in enum, which operator is not allowed? Which operator is not allowed? Which operator is not allowed means any operator that returns a Boolean is not allowed. That means addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, these operators are allowed. Greater than, less than, greater than or equal, and or these are not allowed. Why? Why they are not allowed? Because they are Boolean. They are Boolean type. So you can have a collection of constants. This is example. Another important question in interviews is, in interviews they ask, what is enum reverse mapping? So in interviews they ask a question like, what is enum reverse mapping? Enum reverse mapping is nothing but it is a technique through which you can access the key using value. Generally, we can access a value using key. You can access key using value. That means by using value, you can access the key. That mechanism is called reverse mapping. Reverse mapping of enum. That means here I given not found. Not found is equal to 404. Now I want key and value. I want to print the key and I want to print the value. How you can print the value? First, to print the value, status codes dot not found, it will print the value. And how you will print the key? So that means we have to use status codes of value 404. That means this is reverse mapping of enum. That means into enum you pass the value, it will return its key. It will return its key. This is called enum reverse mapping technique. So that means by using key, you can access the value. By using value, you can access the key. You can access the key. This is enum reverse mapping. You can see here it is going to return both. That means by using key, it is able to access the value. By using value, it is able to access the key. This is actually enum reverse mapping. So this is an example of reverse mapping. Enum reverse mapping. That means with the reference of key, you can access the value, and if the reference of value, you can access the keys. So this is the basic things about, that means wherever you need collection of constants, then better you create an enum. And through that enum, you can access. What is the point about these constants? You cannot assign any new value. So once the values are configured, they are fixed. We have to use in the same way. And what is speciality about if there are number, auto implementation of values can happen. This is the two concepts of generic and enum, right? Next important, you need to understand another is how to use a module and a namespace. These two are the final things in TypeScript that we will see in next session. So Monday we will finish this, and Monday we will, these are two simple things you can easily handle, and Monday itself we will start working on project now. That means we will learn how to create a React project with TypeScript, and we will start building one project now. That means one project I will completely guide, another project you have to do, right? So end-to-end project, that means with backend database, APIs, everything we will design manually, and we will create a complete full application. And another application, I will guide you in certain phases. You have to try others. Everything we will implement in that project. Whatever we learned up to now, everything, including Redux like concepts also, right? That we'll see in next session. Monday will continue. Okay, right.